Well, people arriving in Britain from COVID-19 hotspots could soon face huge fines and up to 10 years prison if they lie about their travel history or fail to properly quarantine. It comes as UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson issued a severe warning to Brits thinking about booking holidays this summer.
I'm afraid it is just too early for people to be certain about what we'll be able to do this summer.
To discuss this now and more, I'm joined by my Thursday international panel from Adelaide, Sky News host Cory Bernardi, and from Sydney, the newly minted federal political editor of the Daily Telegraph, if you don't mind, James Morrow. Hey, congrats on the new gig, James. Now,
Thanks,
are
Peter.
you surprised to hear those words from a freedom-loving Tory Prime Minister, all but banning Brits from going overseas?
Well, I'm not really surprised by anything, Peter, that Boris Johnson says these days. You know, the last year he has gone from being one of the soundest leaders in the Anglosphere to just being a complete squish on just about everything. I find it very strange, though, that they are being so absolutely narky about travel, about quarantines. Well, quarantine I can understand, but also about going overseas, about these super strains, which they keep talking up, but which every time they land here, they seem to have lost a lot of their potency along the way. When the vaccine numbers show that the rollout has been, you know, starting to be really effective in Britain and has been really, really effective. So I'm surprised that Boris Johnson isn't backing the population and the vaccine more because it does seem to be making a real difference there.
Yeah, and he's wasted 12 plus months doing nothing about his borders and nothing about quarantine. It's a little bit too late in my view.
Yeah.
I want to look, Cory, if we can, at this imagery we've been seeing of rioters storming the US Capitol, shown again today. Democrats launching their case to impeach the former president. The footage includes a vision of a Capitol police officer telling GOP presidential candidate Mitt Romney to turn around to avoid running straight into the rioters. I've got to say, this is about trying to get Trump out of the race in 2024. Now, he won't be convicted. The numbers are not there. But broader question for you, it's a bit like, you know, how do you solve a problem like Maria? What do the Republicans do about Trump from here on in? You know, do they embrace him and his supporters? Do they think there's a pathway back? Or do they need to move on? Probably my view. But how do they move on from the Trump era but keep his support base with them?
Well, Peter, I don't think they can move on from the Trump era because there are so many Republican supporters that want that brash America First type of politics. And if the Republicans were any good, they'd dump people like Romney, who is just a Democrat in a finer suit, and they would expose the hypocrisy of the Democrats. What you won't see in the mainstream media, of course, is the fact that the Democrats have been relying on doctored tweets, for example. They've been using that as evidence to try and impeach Trump. They've photoshopped these things. They've used false evidence by claiming fake news as fact. And in fact, one of the impeachment managers had to withdraw it after a claim by Senator Mike Lee was that it was complete nonsense and totally fabricated. So if the Republicans were smart, they would expose the Democrats as being completely full of bogus claims and hysteria, great liars, and demonstrate that they are not fit to govern. Now, that will take some years, but of course, that takes a lot of political courage and will, and I don't see that in too many Republicans right now.
I want to go to the issue of sport and taking the knee and the national anthem. It's been a real sort of debating point for a year or so. The National Basketball Association, the NBA, will force teams to play the national anthem before games are played after billionaire owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban, discontinued the practice. Now, the Mavericks were claiming the Star-Spangled Banner doesn't represent people from all communities before being forced to back down. James, the White House press sec, the new press sec to the President Biden, she was backing in Mark Cuban before the NBA then slapped Cuban down. So she's sort of left out there on a fence of nowhere. But I'm actually pretty pleased, and I'm not a fan necessarily of the NBA in the past, but I'm pretty pleased that someone is standing up for something as important as the national anthem.
Well, it's fascinating, this one, I think, because, you know, we'd had all of those controversies about the national anthem and just this general wokeness in sports over the last couple of years. And the fact that the NBA now has this sudden burst of patriotism, which is really quite amazing, as you suggest, Peta, suggests to me that now that Trump is gone, the revving up of these culture war issues isn't so important to the left anymore, because this was the sort of thing that could be used to fire up their Democrat far left base against Trump, create a controversy, and use that against Trump. But it is fascinating that Jen Psaki, the White House spokeswoman, who is deeply unimpressive and comes unprepared and, lets herself get hung out on things like this, actually said, oh, no, we're going with the woke version of this. We're going with Mark Cuban here. America doesn't always do the best it can. They should be protesting. They should be, withholding the national anthem. That just shows you the mindset, I think, of this White House. If they are saying that, no, the national anthem is triggering to some people. It is a political thing, and it doesn't represent all Americans. I think that's a pretty disturbing thing to say, frankly.
Absolutely. I want to quickly go to this issue in Burma, the raid and the detaining of Aung San Suu Kyi. Cory, very dangerous. I'm going to ask you, what role should we be doing here? But I also want to make the point, I went to Burma, and I'll say Burma deliberately, not Myanmar, a couple of years back, and I was sitting in a meeting with the then PM and Aung San Suu Kyi. She asked him not to use the term Myanmar because she said it was chosen by the military junta, not the Burmese people. She wanted us in Australia to say Burma. I'm saying Burma tonight, but what should Australia be doing?
Well, of course, we've got to stick up for the rule of law and I think democratic processes. Now, I also acknowledge there are question marks, or some have raised questions over the legitimacy of the election, but widely it's regarded as a fair and honest election. Australia has to side with freedom every single time, and I don't know what we can do from a sanction sense. I don't know whether we provide foreign aid to them, but ultimately we've got to side with the lesser evil. And quite frankly, while Aung San Suu Kyi has a questionable track record about human rights in the country of Burma, I think they're far superior to what the military junta has done previous to her and possibly will do since then. So this is going to be a very difficult situation, but may I say this, Peter, we've got bigger fish to fry, quite frankly, looking after our own country here and the people that are trying to inflict economic damage on us.
Fair point to our north, and I did notice you said Burma, so we're in the Bring Back Burma brigade there, you and I, Cory Bernardi. James Murray, congrats again. Cory, thank you as always. Looking forward to your show tomorrow night at 7, Cory Bernardi. Don't miss it.